Let us look at this alarm being raised by Fulanis in Nigeria, of course, through their umbrella body, Miyetti, alleging that the members who are majorly pastoralists are being massacred by non-state actors across the country. But I want to say that this is contrary to the general perception, because all we know is that the Fulanis, particularly the pastoralists, are the aggressor in most cases. Of course, as they go into people's farm, we can clearly see in some instances where even the herders themselves cut down maize to feed their cows. In some cases, uprooting cassavas to feed their cows. So you now beat all the imagination where we are seeing Miyetti coming to claim otherwise. And we are seeing instances where even when the owners of the farm will want to challenge them, how they end up disallowing the owners of the farm. But I will bring you up to speed with what their complaint is through the Punch newspaper. But before I do that, let me quickly allow you to watch this video that happened in the past, where it was reported under Muhammadu Buhari how Miyetti, of course, demanded for about 160 billion naira, and according to the news, that they ended up receiving 100 billion naira, and this happened under Muhammadu Buhari. Though we cannot independently verify this, but I can say that it was all over the media as at that time. But listen to this as we come back to further this conversation.
The federal government, led by the Minister of Interior Abdulrahman Dambazo, met with the Miyetti Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria in Kebbi State, offering them the sum of 100 billion naira over 2 years to stop the kidnapping in the country. The meeting lasted over 4 hours on Friday as negotiations dragged on, with the association initially asking for 160 billion naira. The minister said that the strategy was part of the steps needed to tackle insecurity in the country as prescribed by the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. The headsman crisis has risen since 2015 after Muhammadu Buhari became president. Their rampage has spread not only in the north but also throughout the southern zones of the country. The killings by the headsmen has led them to be tagged the fourth most dangerous and deadly terrorist group in the world by the World Terror Index. The acting Inspector General of Police, Muhammad Adamu, who was also at the meeting in Kebbi State, added that over 1,000 people have been killed and many more kidnapped in Kaduna. However, he said that this intervention was necessary to bring the criminals to book. The Kebbi State Governor Atiku Bagudu said hosting the meeting in his state shows the seriousness of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration in tackling the security challenges in the country. Responding, the president of the association, Alhaji Muhammad Kirua, said the meeting would serve as a foundation for peace between the Fulani headsmen and farmers and among Fulanis themselves.
So I will listen to this, and the news had it then that they were being paid that money to curb killings as we have in Nigeria. So a bit all imagination how it started hearing this as well. But again, let me bring you up to speed with what the Punch is saying about this. He said Miyetti alleges genocidal massacre of herders, demands probe. He goes further to say that the Miyetti Counter Fulani Sociocultural Organization has lamented the continuous genocidal massacre of Fulani pastoralists by non-state actors in the name of vigilantes and Yansakai across the country. The association therefore called on the Inspector General of Police, to set up a high-powered panel to unmask those responsible for the dastardly acts and ensure that justice is done to the victims' families in the shortest possible time. This was contained in a communique jointly signed by the National President and Secretary of the Association, Abdullahi Bello Bodejo and Saleh Al-Hassan, respectively, and made available to newsmen in Kefi, local government area of Nasarawa State, on Tuesday. Even as I want to say that nobody is justified to take any other person's life, and nobody is encouraged to do so. But this recent development beats all imagination, because for me, what we hear and what we know that is common in Nigeria is the Fulanis, just as you can see some videos on the screen, commonly take their cows into people's farm, into people's plantation, destroy their crops, and in some cases, where people will raise alarm, they end up attacking the person, and in some cases, disaliving the person. But I'm not saying their complaints should not be investigated. I'm not saying if it is found to be true that any non-state actor that takes the life of any other person in the name of pastoralists should not be held to account. But what I'm saying is, why is it that the Miyetti Allah itself, we don't see them condemn the action, the activities of their members who often go about destroying people's crop? And even in some instances, one will see some states enacting anti-open grazing laws. You equally see them trying to oppose the enforcement of such laws, standing on the ground that their people have freedom of movement. You begin to wonder, begin to ask, does the freedom of movement extend to moving cows all around in the society? Do cows as well have freedom of movement? But one thing I know that is certain is the world best practice when it comes to cattle rearing currently is ranching. That is why all pastoralists should be encouraged to ranch their cows. Because as far as I'm concerned, I think what behoves on states to start doing currently is to start passing, or rather enacting, anti-open grazing laws. That way, it will be certain that anybody that roams around the streets with his cow is doing it illegally. And such person should be arrested and prosecuted according to the law that would have been enacted in the state. So that this issue of herders-farmer clashes would be a thing of the past. But let me quickly say that even at this point, even the argument that the government in some cases should bankroll the ranching, I think is a misplaced priority or argument, because for me, the business of cattle rearing is individual. And anybody that wants to ranch his cow should be able to raise money to do so, or approach a financial institution for the funding. We understand that it has been claimed that the cattle rearing has good financial chain, good value chain. I'm not disputing that. But what I'm trying to say in essence is, if bank is bankrolling such business of ranching, the bank will be leveraging on that value chain to recoup their money. So I don't want to believe that it will be reasonable to put the financial burden of ranching on federal government. And again, another issue is, when it comes to that same ranching, particularly in the southern part of the country, it will be extremely difficult to have people, communities, states cede land for ranching under any circumstance, whether leasing, outright sale, because the Fulani themselves have shown over time that they do not have respect for host communities. So if for any reason they want to see that trend reversing, they must themselves turn a good leaf, a new leaf, and they must start having respect for their host communities. But I want to say that it will be very difficult for you to see any community in the southern part of the country that will willingly cede land for ranching, either outright sale, whether leasing, or whatever shape it takes. But the important thing is, the Fulani themselves, if they claim that they are law-abiding, they should be able to themselves fish out the bad eggs within them. Because we have seen this in so many instances where people will allege that the Fulani that wreak havoc is the foreign Fulani, that those ones are not the Nigerian Fulani. But it behoves on the Fulani themselves to identify who is a foreign Fulani and who is an indigenous Fulani. So they are the ones that will identify such and isolate them from the society. But however I look at it, the perception out there is that the Fulani man is always looking for trouble. So they have the responsibility to reverse the trend through their character. Because before now, I understand that The Fulanis normally live in harmony with their host communities in the time past. There was no issue of banditry, apprehension that a Fulani man is coming. But the attitude of the Fulani man currently, particularly the pastoralists, as you can see in the videos playing on the screen, how they move around with their cows straight into people's farm deliberately. Because in some instances, you see herders themselves uprooting cassavas for their cows. In some instances, you see herders cutting down maize for their cows. So when you see this type of video, how do you not justify the position of Miyetti, who is now alleging that their members have been massacred by non-state actors? Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying their members should be massacred by non-state actors. If such happens, I think the police have a responsibility to investigate and arrest and prosecute whoever does that. But the point is, the herders themselves must learn to live in harmony with their host communities, must learn how to respect their host communities, because it is the way to go. As far as I'm concerned, the best option in this circumstance is to ensure that, one, herders, not just herders, anybody that is interested in cattle rearing should go and ranch his or her cow. Secondly, states should start enacting anti-open grazing laws. And I think it's even more easier now that federal government have given the states the leverage to start recruiting forest guards. So, by so speaking, those forest guards will have the responsibility of enforcing such anti-open grazing laws. We understand that in the time past, when such laws are enacted, I have a situation where the states complain that the police are not enforcing it to the letter. Hence, we don't have a force that is under the command and control of the states. So enforcing such laws will not be a challenge for such states. But at this point, I must say very thank you for your time. This is Mr.